Welcome to the Zinnov podcast. You're listening to our Business Resilience series, where we bring to you conversations between eminent industry stalwarts and thought leaders from across the globe as they discuss their insights on overcoming challenges and the mindset that help them navigate the journey of crisis, resilience, and growth.
Welcome to Woman in the Mirror. I'm Nitika Goel, CMO of Zinnov. Today we're stepping away from our usual tech conversations to explore something that might surprise you: art. Now you might be thinking, Zinnov, talking about art? Aren't we usually strategizing with CXOs, breaking down their problems, forecasting the next big thing in tech? Well, here's the thing. What is the biggest challenge for CXOs today? It's talent that innovates and talent that disrupts. But the fact is, disruption comes with innovation, and innovation comes with creativity. That's why Zinnov's Public Spaces initiative makes perfect sense. When people come together, ideas flow, and art, it's just one of the most powerful ways to build these connections. We're not talking about art being locked away in galleries, but bringing it to where life happens, transforming the spaces we move through every single day. And the artists and curators bringing this vision to life, each one a remarkable woman bringing her unique perspective to the public spaces. As Frida Kahlo once said, at the end of the day, we can endure much more than we think we can. And like her, these artists aren't just breaking glass ceilings, they're painting murals on them, creating art that speaks to the heart of our communities. In this episode, we're featuring three women working in the space of art: Yamini Telkar, Shanthamani Muddaiah, and Jahnavi Phalkey. They're not just creating, they're challenging perceptions, shaping spaces, and pushing boundaries in a world that's still learning to recognize the depth and impact of art. First up, we have Yamini Telkar, the Director of Public Spaces Initiative Zinnov and the former head of the art program at the Bengaluru International Airport. An expert in modern and contemporary art, folk art practices in India, and the evolving art market, Yamini has spent years working with museums, institutions, and the art industry. Born into a family of artists, her journey into art may have seemed natural, but choosing fine art, stepping into teaching and bringing art to a wider audience, that is a path she had to carve for herself. One that came with its own challenges. Here's Yamini sharing her journey.
My initial journey was pretty straightforward because I come from a family of artists. So art was a natural progression or a natural decision. I was blessed and lucky to be in a family where it was never a question, what would you do? Because it was, yes, you will be in the space of art. But my journey was different. While they were mostly in applied art or the realm of advertising, I chose fine art. So that was a big shift that happened, and I trained as an artist, but I think my interest was more in teaching, in kind of taking it to a larger audience, because there's always this mystery about this, what is art? I used to teach art history rather than the technical skills, because the why of it was always interesting for me. And I want people and in the field, and women especially, to kind of pick up from my experience and take it forward. So looking forward to this conversation.
If art had a Google Translate button, Yamini would be it. She doesn't just understand art, she deciphers it, contextualizes it, and Yamini's journey has been about bridging the gap between the art and its audience. We've all been there, staring at a modern art piece wondering if it's just pure genius or upside down. Next up, we have Shanthamani Muddaiah, a sculptural artist whose work explores the intersection of tradition and globalization. She works with materials like charcoal, creates sculptures and installations that tell stories of history, ecology, and most importantly, identity. Shanta may have begun with paint and paper, but along the way, her artistic journey took a turn. one that reshaped not just her medium, but her entire perspective.
I am basically from Mysore. Went to do my master's in MS University, Baroda. Then I had a little opportunity with Charles Wallace Fellowship to be in Scotland, in Glasgow, to learn how to make paper. That is where the transition really happened from painting to sculpture, because I learned how to sculpt with paper. And slowly I transit into much more harder and heavier material to sculpt. So the last 30 years I've been living in Bangalore. I learned everything that I know in this space. Even whatever I make, as art is also something that comes from the experiences in Bangalore and looking at how people navigate this very complexity. So I'm really looking forward to this discussion and talk.
And that is the magic of Shanthamani. Taking the raw, the rugged, the overlooked, and turning it into something that demands attention. From paper to stone, tradition to modernity, and local to global, her work isn't just about what we see, it's about what we choose to remember. Next up, we have Jahnavi Phalkey, a historian, filmmaker, and the person behind the stories of science most of us never hear. Basically, if science had a behind-the-scenes documentary in India, Jahnavi would be the one directing it. But here's the twist. She didn't just start in science. Nope. She wanted to be an academic for life. Or as she puts it, I wanted to die a professor. Which, let's be honest, is some next-level career commitment. But her journey, it didn't exactly follow the standard formula. Here's Jahnavi sharing how it all began.
I started out in the humanities. At the age of 15, I decided to study history, economics, and politics. And I graduated, in fact, with a major in civics and politics. So I think there are many things that happen. Some of them are serendipitous, some of them are sort of contingent. And when I was doing my PhD, I found myself not particularly satisfied with where things were going. And an opportunity presented itself in that I got admitted to a program that I understood fairly little about, actually. I got admitted to with funding at Georgia Tech to do history of science, and I thought I should give it a shot. And today I can say that I had found the right discipline for me, because I remain excited by it even today, right? And it's 24 years since this happened. So it's been a long time. And then I followed a fairly predictable path for myself. I knew I wanted to be an academic, or as I often say, I wanted to die a professor. And I then got an academic job and tenured at King's College in London. And at some point I felt like, I needed a little more excitement in my life. And so I signed up for a documentary filmmaking course. It took me a long time to finish the film. I was also working with the Science Museum in London. And then the opportunity to set up Science Gallery Bengaluru came along. And so here I am, a little over 6.5 years later. Earlier this year, we opened the doors of the gallery. But yeah, here we are.
Jahnavi's journey proves that sometimes the best parts aren't planned, they're discovered. And as we just heard, she's been uncovering stories one unexpected turn at a time. The scene in Devil Wears Prada where Miranda Priestley dismantles the idea of fashion, it being just stuff by tracing the history of a simple blue sweater. Oh no, sorry, it's not just a simple blue sweater, it's a cerulean blue sweater. For Shanthamani and Yamini, the challenge wasn't making art, it was making people see why it matters. From navigating skepticism to defining its value, they've each had to push through resistance to bring their vision to life. So what does it take to make art that doesn't just exist but demands to be seen? Here's their views on the same.
When we talk about art, we're not talking about traditional practices or classical modes. We're talking about contemporary art. Learning contemporary art is not a very easy thing, Naties, because middle class looks at it in a very doubtful way. Being contemporary art meant modern. We are becoming modern. Young woman is not an easy thing at that point. So I ended up being the only woman in my batch coming from Mysore. For me, my struggle of trying to carve my identity was at that point when we had people like, Indira Gandhi as Prime Minister of this country, but we were still struggling to go to college or to make those choices on our own. Sculpture is something much more dynamic. It really challenges you physically and mentally. Also, making sculptures for public spaces creates a very dynamic way of interacting with communities. Being out there, asserting or having a voice to say what you want to say as a woman. And that's truly an empowering space.
So my challenge was that how do I make sense of something that's so abstract? How do I put it in a system where a non-art person can understand the logic which is there? Because trust me, there is a logic when it comes to the commercial or the transactional part of art. And I think arriving at a system which made sense to the non-art person without losing out on the nuances or the intricacies that go into the whole aspect of an art market. It's highly complicated. Because it's art, they tend to patronize you, which is very annoying. The second thing is, it's art, anybody can do it. What's so difficult? You just need to take a sculpture and you need to place it. So the work that goes into it, the conceptualization is often overlooked. The sensitivity of why you're doing what you're doing, like why do you need a particular space for it, is extremely difficult to convince it. Because they said, but how does it matter? If it doesn't fit you, put it there. And I would get it from people in senior management. And at the same time, it was considered as a decorative element, which bothers me no end. Because the whole idea of any project, that you want to bring in art and you want to make a difference. So that there is some thought process which exists that, art can make a difference. But at the other end, it is like not knowing what the difference is and thinking that it is something that is superficial, and not realizing that the deep impact it can have on the psychology or experience. So the impact of it is something that is kind of ignored.
So I have walked away. Not without agony, not without sort of, feelings of pain, but I have walked away. Giving up to me is more where the situation is tough and demands more of you, and you decide to not give it more of you. But walking away is when you say, this goal is not working for me. This project is not working for me. I want something else. I want something smaller or bigger or more nourishing or more exciting or whatever it may be. And therefore, I should walk away from here, because any more investment in this is not going to give me any amount of satisfaction.
So art isn't just about making something beautiful. It's about making people see what they'd rather ignore. And as we've heard, that's not always easy. All day, every day, therapist, mother, mentor. But when it comes to the heavy lifting, literally and figuratively, there's often a polite nudge to step aside. In the art world, that means being told where to stand while someone else takes over. But as we've seen, artists don't just create, they challenge, they push, they make space where there wasn't any. And lately, that space is being shaped by a whole new set of hands. Let's talk about what's changing and what still gets in the way.
We have some way to go, because I think it's not easy in the workplace for both men and women to accept a woman leader as easily as we are able to male leader, right? And I think there's no doubt about that. I mean, if that wasn't the case, things would look different. So I think in India, we still have some distance to travel to normalize, in a way, leadership by women.
If you're lifting something like 200 kilos or 500 kilos, they'll always tell you, ma'am, you come this side, stand here, we will handle it. And my argument is that I can lift whatever I can lift. You put your hand and lift what you can do. Don't ask me to step out, because it's my work. This is something that I have to constantly battle when I work physically with a group of men. Unfortunately, it's always a group of men you work with. Yeah. No, but now what I'm experiencing is very fantastic. The people who are in the leads in the art are very dynamic women. I read about you, your path breaking and you're brave and all of that. It's fantastic. At this point, we are actually experiencing something different in India where women are taking the lead, and it's fantastic to work with them.
Whether it's Shanthamani pushing back against being told to step aside, Jahnavi questioning how leadership is perceived, or Yamini navigating the egos and expectations of the art world, one thing is clear. Making art is hard, but making space for yourself in the art world, even harder. But as we've heard, things are starting to change. We know the challenges, being sidelined, second-guessed, or expected to quietly go along. But how do you deal with it? Do you fight? Do you walk away? Play the long game? Well, for our guests today, there's no single playbook, just instinct, strategy, and of course, a little bit of humor.
My simple mantra is take a deep breath, let go. And it has come in handy innumerable number of times because it's the world of art. These are artists, these are creative people. Even the people who actually are so-called the business part of it, they all come with crazy egos and crazy self-identities. I always have to, be the sane one in there to navigate all of this and get something out of it. Because I believe like I'm the bridge, right? I have to make it happen. I see both the ends. And if I want to do that, I have to be able to hold it all together.
It depends on the moment. It depends on what's at stake. So if the stakes are small, I tend to kind of not worry about it too much at the moment and just say, let the work speak for itself. You'll find out at some point. If the stakes are high and you need to get something done, then you kind of dig your heels in. And there are many adjectives you can use. I can be persistent. I can be determined. I can be very, very stubborn. You have to do what it takes. At times you can use humor. So there's this one lovely exchange I recently had with my husband where I don't know what it is, but everyone wants to help you, right? Let me know if I can help you. Let me know if I can help you, right? And it ranges from senior to younger junior colleagues will have something similar to say, like, let me know if I can help you. And at some point I was like, do I look helpless to you? And my husband came back and then said, maybe not helpless, but you can say, I can't be helped. And I just laughed my heart out when he said that, because and that he's always tried to say, try some humor, because that's probably going to help you work your way through. And it's not easy always to muster up the lightness to actually have humor. But when I've been able to have humor, I think it has helped.
The corporate world is known to be cutthroat, but if there's one thing I learned about the art world, is that it isn't for the faint of heart. Making a career in art needs more than talent, it needs survival skills. But here's the thing, no one does it alone. Behind every artist pushing boundaries is a community of supporters, teachers that lift each other up.
Pursuing career in art is very difficult. There is no economy around the art. Only recently the market is open. Apart from making the kind of art that public wants, if you really want to push the boundaries and be experimental, I think thankfully I was not isolated in a sense. There were many like us. I think art community is very small and they all know each other. There's a nice camaraderie. There's a lot of women artists who are working in India. That's fantastic. A lot of women in art are very dynamic and powerful, and that really helped me to continue. They have taught certain kind of things to me, and it was not only just teaching or holding hands or being emotionally there, sometimes even financially, and they really changed the path of my life. I think as a woman who was looking for my own voice, this was very important for me.
As a leader, I've learned that vulnerability isn't a flaw. It's what builds trust. When I admit I don't have all the answers, it creates a space for real conversations. When I share my struggles, It encourages others to do the same. And in the world of art, where everything you create is deeply personal, that kind of openness isn't just important, it's essential. For Shanthamani, Yamini, and Jahnavi, vulnerability isn't a weakness. It's a source of strength, mentorship, and leadership. Here's what happens when you stop seeing emotion as a disadvantage and start using it to build something bigger.
I express it with my team on a regular basis. They are aware of my vulnerabilities. I am not embarrassed by my vulnerabilities. It has come to bite me at times because it is mobilized differently depending on where you've expressed it or not, but I'm not embarrassed by my vulnerability.
Art is very emotional. So even I will come into it. Men who come into that fold also have to have that sensibility. So probably we are natural and they need to acquire it. So
they're at a disadvantage.
I think so. I know this phase that we all go through, that we are called emotional and or also branding hysterical and things like that. We know the structure why that those kind of things play out. I am not ready to succumb to it, and I have really valid reason to be a woman, to be all that. I'm okay with dealing with it, and I'm okay to put it across out there in public space, to experience it and to talk about it and discuss what kind of discourse is around it. But I have no hesitation to be a woman at any point of time.
No, I think it is important to be vulnerable, because that allows you to look at things differently. That allows you to, build a network, of people who come out and support you. And that has helped me. When I have been in tough spot, I've said, okay, this is it. And I cherish it.
For our guests today, being vulnerable and your authentic self is what shaped their art and the communities they've built around them. Because in the end, the strongest voices aren't the loudest. They're the ones that are unafraid to be real. All right, we've had really heavy, deep conversations and big reflections, but now it's time to shake things up a little. We've talked about the big stuff, career, challenges, art, leadership. But what about the little things, the moments that make our guests laugh, the advice they give their younger selves, or the things they'd say to their future selves? This is our rapid fire round. No overthinking, just gut answers. And let's see what comes out. What is your go-to music when you are sculpting? Or do you listen to music at all?
I listen to a lot of Indian classical music. T.M. Krishna is somebody that I listen to a lot. But I also listen to Mali music. That's something that really appeals to me. I also listen to throat singing sometimes.
Awesome. What is a one word to describe your professional journey?
That one word would be patience, perseverance, and control. I have 3 words. I don't have one word for it.
One word to describe your leadership style.
Mentorship.
Love it.
If many others want to do what Science Gallery Bengaluru does, then that is the moment we know we have succeeded. Helping people that I work with recognize their own strengths and voices. So it's one of mentorship and mentoring.
If you looked at yourself in the mirror and you had to give your 20-year-old self some piece of advice, what would it be?
Worry less.
Worry less? Okay.
Just be a little bit more bolder and put yourself out there.
Not to be so scared and worried, to be confident, to trust oneself.
If you looked at the woman that you are today in the mirror, what would you tell her?
Rest a little more.
Rest a little more.
Take on the world and don't hold it back and just go ahead.
There's a long way to go. You can still make a difference.
If you had to tell your future self 20 years hence, if you think with your current mind frame, what would it be?
My future self. Wait for me.
I would say that stick to my vision, just push myself and break all the barriers that I've had so far and make that dream of having an art institute happen. And it will happen.
Not to give up, not to end it because the system says it.
And just like that, we are at the end of this conversation. But let's be honest, we could have gone on for hours. And a huge thank you to Shanthamani, Yamini, and Jahnavi for keeping it real, for sharing not just their art, but the stories, struggles, and the unexpected moments that truly shaped them. If there's one thing I'm taking away from this, is that art isn't just about making something, but figuring out how to make it work. Rules aren't always clear, the path isn't always easy, but somehow you just keep going. And if you ever find yourself stuck, ask for help, laugh at the chaos, and remind yourself some of the best things in life make no sense at all at first. As we wrap up this season of Woman in the Mirror, I'm struck by the remarkable journeys we've shared. From healthcare to BFSI, software to retail, each conversation with these 20 women reveals something powerful. We've learned that true strength lies in embracing vulnerability, that falling is just a part of rising higher, and that success isn't a solo journey. It's built on self-belief and a community that lifts you up. I'm Nitika Goel, CMO of Zinnov, signing off for this season of Woman in the Mirror. Thank you for being a part of these inspiring conversations. Stay tuned for season 2, where we meet more extraordinary women who have so many more stories to tell.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Business Resilience Series. Stay tuned for more such interesting episodes. You can listen to our podcast on Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcast from. To know more about Zinnov, visit our website, www.zinnov.com, or drop us a note at info@zinnov.com. Follow us on Twitter @Zinnov for regular updates on our content. Thank you again for listening to the Business Resilience Series of the Zinnov Podcast.